Welcome to the Hoop Collective podcast. We talk about the NBA, which we are doing together in Los Angeles on Thursday morning. It's a very special event. We haven't been in the same room together since the live pod in Akron back in September. So it's a very rare situation. Tim Bontemps joining me from Los Angeles.
Hello.
Where it's sunrise. It's early in Los Angeles, sunrise. Ben MacMahon.
Howdy, partners. It is a pleasure to be here. I've got some breaking news that will shock the masses. Brian Windhorst picked up the check for dinner last night. Much appreciated. Much appreciated.
MacMahon's begging the other night worked out for us. It was great.
Every time Bontemps ordered another Aperol Spritz, I was like, oh, that's going to sting. But, I did.
He's a nice guy sometimes.
But this is a big event because, it just so happens we're here on this day. I don't want to make it sound like it's and we're all dressed up because if you're watching on YouTube, we're all wearing suit jackets because we're going on NBA Today. It's not because we like our, normally we. It
is a big day though. Money will move today.
It is.
Ooh.
Because it's the first Bontemps poll of the season. You call it
the BS poll, the Bontemps straw poll, the bet shifting poll, what was the other one I came up with the other day?
You said you couldn't say it for good reasons.
Secret poll, the big secret poll, and we do not know.
We don't.
The results. I tried. Bontemps was on 1 hour sleep. I tried every trick I could.
Like after two drinks, MacMahon still tried to trick him into saying who was in the poll.
We have no idea. Well, we got ideas, but we're going into this thing blind as far as the actual results.
Yeah.
Don't want to spoil the reaction as we go along.
We don't want to do the show before the show. So,
That's
okay.
Right.
This one is a little bit different. And that is because you did the polling. We mentioned this on the last podcast. You did the polling, and then
from about Monday afternoon until Tuesday afternoon.
Right. And then the Tuesday night, we had the NBA Cup championship game. And so you allowed the voters.
Well, everybody always has the ability to change their mind until I send it to the editors, which I did last night. But you, Brian, I was texting you on Tuesday before the game, and I was kind of annoyed because I've got this down to a pretty good science now. And I got all the votes back in about 24 hours. I was like, it might have been good to just ask after the game and just make sure I include it. And you said, well, why don't you just check with people after? So I did and created a bunch of extra work for myself, but made for an interesting poll.
I texted him about midway through the third quarter and be like, I might want to flip.
Wow, third quarter.
The third quarter, as things were getting away from the Thunder, let's just say.
Texted me from 4 feet away, not knowing I was there.
Yeah, then I looked over to my
into
left.
the game MacMahon was. He's like, oh, you're there. Yeah.
No, it shows you how great I've become at ignoring Bontemps.
So we'll talk afterwards about how the vote changed, because the vote did change, right?
It changed pretty significantly. I also will say, I think that's pretty silly.
Agreed. I actually don't like it. I was going to save this for later, but I don't like it.
We can we'll
get into this at that point of the pod. Obviously, we're talking about SGA and Giannis, and I'll make my case why I don't think it's safe.
Obviously. I didn't vote for either of them first. Okay.
Well, no, we're talking if people are flipping votes based on the NBA Cup final. I don't think we're talking about.
We're doing it before we need to.
That's right.
Pat Connaughton
people are here
Isaiah
for one
Joe.
reason. Not to talk about Isaiah Joe.
The only thing I know is that there are 14 players to get votes. So Bontemps is going to raffle through 14 through 6 here. And let's hear how it went.
Okay, so 4 guys got 1 fifth place vote each. Ja Morant, Anthony Edwards, Victor Wembanyama, first ever straw poll vote, and Anthony Davis. Steph Curry got 2 fifth place votes. Jalen Brunson got 5 fifth place votes. Be another Nick in a second. Got more than him. Kevin Durant got 3 total votes. Finished 8th at 7 points.
I had Durant on my ballot. I'm a little surprised that he is not.
He had 2 fourths and a fifth. I think you were one of the fourths.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody heard, but they're like 13 or 12 and 2 what he plays, and when he doesn't play, they're like really bad.
But how many games have they not played with him? Then that's why he's not on ballot.
I think
the vote, we're ranking where he's gone so far. Like, he has to play 65 games to be eligible. Is he on pace to play 65 games?
No.
We're going to get to he's not on pace because he's missed a bunch of games.
Well, okay, you're right. Pace is the wrong word. He hasn't missed more than 17 games.
We're going to get to the top of the poll later. I do think Kevin Durant is the one guy who, if he can stay on the court, has a chance to go up the list a lot.
I would agree with that.
In 7th was Karl-Anthony Towns. Stats Williams said to me, guaranteed me before I'd started the poll, that Karl-Anthony Towns would get at least one vote. He got a lot more than I expected. If there was a Nick on here, I would have voted for Jalen Brunson. I wouldn't have had Jalen Brunson on there either. But
well, how many votes did he get?
So Cat had 12 total votes, a fourth and 1 fourth, 11 fifth. He had 14 points. Cavs corner.
Ooh,
Donovan Mitchell.
For all the criticism, did I vote for Donovan Mitchell? No, I did not.
Oh, a little sensitivity to Cavs corner. A little sensitivity.
A little
to
sensitive
Cavs
after
corner.
Jayson Concepcion put him on absolute rocket fire blast.
Listen,
on the
I didn't get
pod.
sensitive that he ripped me for pointing out that those sub 6 foot refs
Listen,
have
Jayson
short
just was
fuses.
spitting facts as he always does. So Donovan Mitchell, 1 third place vote, 6 fourth place votes, 7 fifth place votes, 14 total, 30 points.
All right.
Donovan Mitchell wasn't going to win MVP. He finished in 6th, to be clear. Donovan Mitchell is definitely not winning MVP, I would say, coming out of this.
You can't say definitely.
No, I would say definitely because they're but here,
He can say definitely because he can say definitely about anything.
well, that's a fair point. But look, Donovan Mitchell and the Cavs are what, 23-4?
Yeah.
If he was going to win the award, he'd be a lot higher on the list right now because the best argument he's got is the best player on the best team in the league, and he's way, way, way behind everybody else.
Well, and he's not going to have the numbers that the guys that we're about to get to.
Now, if they go 72-10, sure. I don't think the Cavs are going 72-10. So in the realm of reasonableness, I don't think he has any shot to win.
Okay, before you go into this, I just want to remind everybody about the methodology. I know if you've been a long-time listener, you know this.
We always have new listeners, Brian. It's a never-growing family.
Bontemps polls 100 likely MVP voters, the actual electorate. It's not 10 people. It's not 10 people when there's 1,500 voters or however many Heisman voters there are. It's an actual replication of the voting pool. The NBA doesn't select the voting pool until later, but...
Ooh, I still have a chance?
Yeah.
Actually,
what would you guess, Bontemps? What would you guess? Probably high of these 100 people, probably mid to high 80s of the people will probably...
I don't know if it's quite that high. I would say it's probably around half. But it's the same formula. It's a couple people from every market. It's a chunk of international voters.
Yeah, it's not 10 people from New York, although there's 2 Knicks on here.
It's a chunk of, the people in New York didn't, I don't remember.
Cat's still getting the Minnesota vote.
Maybe.
But no, it's the attempt is to replicate the formula as close as possible.
Right. And it's historically been extremely accurate.
Yeah, the results have borne that out.
Which is why, we'll talk about what the NBA bet odds are, or the ESPN bet odds are later. But we're going to compare how the odds shift when we get together next week, which we have a little bit of a holiday downtime. But anyway, okay. You have any comment on this 6 through 14, MacMahon?
I would agree with you that KD is the one out of there that has a chance to become a legitimate candidate. However, the 65-game minimum is definitely in serious jeopardy.
Okay, fair. But right now he's not missed 17 games, and I think his value as a most valuable player is pretty bona fide.
If he plays 65 and the trend continues of their record with him in the lineup, he's going to have.
Well, anyway, I had Durant 4th on my ballot, so maybe I'm the fool. Okay, top 5.
So 5th place, the guy that Ben MacMahon is very familiar with. I was trying to see how many games the Suns have played. So Kevin has played 15 games. And the Suns have played 25. So he's already missed 10
13
games.
and 2 with him in the lineup.
They've already missed 10.
Yeah.
So that's going to be difficult for
I
him.
agree, but you have to miss 17. Or was it 18? You can miss 17.
You have to. You are ineligible if you miss 18. So 5th place, Luka Dončić, 123 total points, 1 third place vote, 26 fourth place votes, 40 5th place votes, most 5th place votes by a decent amount, 67 ballots, 67 out of 100.
Now, this is the guy who at the start of the year, we thought this was going to be his year.
He came in as the MVP favorite.
I would call him a co-favorite.
He came in
because they were basically neck and neck last year.
Okay. He came in expected to have a great chance to win his first MVP. He got off to, by his standards, a slow start. And it's not just the counting stats, which are still elite, but the efficiency was way down. I mean, he
plus the Mavericks weren't exactly slaying.
Yeah, they got off to a 5-8 start. It was not a good start of the season for Luka. He has been much better since he was shut down with the wrist and was able to work on his conditioning. He has played at an MVP level since then, with the exception of the knockout round loss to the Thunder when Lou Dort and double teams, and it was just a tough night. But then he bounces back from that and had the best game
in Golden State,
maybe of the season by anybody so far. When you're talking about a 45-point triple-double, where he's also, I forgot what the defensive numbers were, but racking up steals and getting blocks, 45, 11, 13. If that is a sign of things to come, in my mind right now, there are three real candidates, three guys that you're choosing between as the number one guy. If what Luka's done since coming back is going to continue, he's going to make this a 4-horse race. Now
he's absolutely still a strong contender to win the award. Not
based on what he's done. So not based on what he's done. So he was not a candidate to be number one on ballots right now. But there is 2/3 of the season left to play now.
So right now, by the way, he is in the odds. He was right. Was he number one in ESPN bet to start the year? I don't know. But as of right now, as we're recording this, he's plus 700, which is fourth.
Yeah, and look, he's sitting out. This is Thursday morning. We're recording this. He's going to miss tonight's game against the Clippers with a heel contusion. Hopefully, that's just a one-game thing. We'll see about that. It is the 7th game that he's missed this season. Obviously, we'll track that. See if the 65-game minimum becomes something that's in jeopardy at some point.
Why did you not like the fee?
I think that for Luka to win, right? Because he had the slow start. We're going to get to it later, but I think for him to catch the guys in front of him, he's going to have to put up truly bonkers numbers.
Which he could.
Which he does.
But here's the thing. I think let's talk about it after we get to the top.
I will say this.
So I think it's better to talk about holistic.
I'm not making any gambling advice here. I'm just going to say that I believe and MacMahon believes that Luka can still win the MVP.
I think that's a bad bet.
And he's plus 700 now, and he was plus like a 150 before.
I think this will be a 4-horse race, and I think he will be in the race.
I don't.
One reason is this, and the fact that the Mavericks went 5-1 without him obviously doesn't, tell you anything about his value. But what it does is it makes it very realistic that the Mavericks are going to have a damn good record at the end of the season.
I agree.
And that's kind of what
I think. I love this poll coming now because this is right at the beginning of the conversation, especially after the NBA Cup. And I know you've got the history, and I'm not fighting with the history. I believe in this poll. I don't think anything on this list is assured.
It's not a commentary on Luka. It's more a commentary on the other people involved. But I think it's better to talk about holistically at the end.
All right.
But for now, I'll disagree.
Fourth place with 95 ballots, 3 second-place votes, which I think should indicate something. So I'm starting there. 13 third-place votes, 51 fourth-place votes, and 28 fifth-place votes. Jayson Tatum, Celtics star, 267 total points. And I would also say that I do not think Jayson Tatum is winning MVP.
Top of the second tier, baby. Top of the second tier.
Yeah. I think there's 3 clear guys who we're going to spend a lot of time on. And I think because of how dominant the 2 of them have been statistically and how dominant the other one's team is going to be while also putting up huge numbers, I think it's going to be extremely difficult for either Tatum, who's, again, we're sort of in the same conversation with him where the best argument for him is he's the best player on the best team. Well, again, that has not really translated to him being farther up this list at all in the last couple of years. And I think for Luka, even if he puts up huge numbers, even if his team plays better, he's going to lose the numbers argument, I think, to 2 of the guys. And I think he's going to lose the team argument to the other guy.
The sportsbook agree with you here. So I mentioned the top 4 guys. Luka's 4th. Tatum is 5th. And I said Luka right now is plus 700 at ESPN bet. Tatum in 5th is plus 2,500.
I mean, look, Jayson Tatum's an incredible player, and the Celtics are a great team, but they're focused on June, and his numbers, he's not putting up the numbers these other guys are. They play an egalitarian style. He's not forcing numbers like that.
Well, and even
I just don't think it's going to be a
By
scenario
the way,
where
he's
gonna be
not
in
like
that
the
spot.
clear-cut best player on the best team. I would say that he is, but Jaylen Brown is a driving force.
I mean, they have a ton of great players, but Jayson Tatum is
I
clearly
agree,
their
but
best
what I'm
player.
saying is it's not like it's not like when you look at OKC and it's like Luka and then there's a gap. I mean, Shai and there's a gap.
Sure.
Or the Mavericks.
Well, and look, Tatum is absolutely a perennial all NBA player and should be. But when I say, hey, Luka's efficiency is down, he still has a slightly better field goal percentage than Tatum and just a notch worse from 3-point range. So it's not like Tatum is part of a cog machine and shooting unbelievable percentages. I mean, he's an outstanding player. He's not a legitimate MVP candidate.
I mean, he's right where he should be.
Fourth place
he's a
is
legitimate candidate.
He's a ballot. He's a guy who should be on ballots.
Exactly.
He's not a candidate to be.
He's right where he
win an
should be.
MVP.
He's right in fourth.
All right. Third place.
So now we get to the interesting part. Third place on the ballot, 19 first place votes, 38 second place votes, 32 third place votes, 9 fourth place votes, 98 of 100 ballots. Do you want to guess who that was?
Joker.
You got it. Let's give a guess.
If Nikola Jokic is not on 2 ballots, I don't even know what to say.
Well, I mean, I
if
think
any
you
of
could
these
say that
guys
about
are,
any
I
of
was
them.
going to say, if yeah.
Well, I voted for Jokic for number 1 and didn't change.
Who are
my
you
vote.
picking as third?
I'm with MacMahon. I think it's probably Jokic.
The answer is Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Wow.
That actually is very surprising. Maybe not as people flipped as I thought.
643 total points.
Huh. Who the hell left Giannis off?
I'm not going to say.
I mean, you can't
I,
say
I do
that.
not reveal
but
votes.
golly.
Were you one of them?
I was not one of them.
I don't know. I kind of feel like I want to know where he was before.
I mean, the people who left him off have they had league pass the last month?
They were among the people that I checked after, and they stood by their ballot.
Well,
All right.
and look, he got, obviously the Bucks got
I checked with everyone after, to be clear, not just them.
The Bucks got off to an abysmal start, but that was despite Giannis putting up insane numbers with.
Well, I want to read off the stats for each of these 3 guys because they're bonkers. So Giannis' stats right now. He's leading the league with 32.7 points per game, almost 2 points ahead of Jokic. They're the top 3.
He would have had his net number come down a little bit because he only scored 29 in the NBA Cup game. But thank God it doesn't.
So he's averaging
not count.
32.7 points on a cool 61.5% shooting. He's basically stopped shooting threes, which has been good.
Yeah.
11.5 rebounds, 6.1 assists, 1.6 blocks per game. Just absolutely dominant. And like we talked about the other night, we caught some grief for saying we thought Shai would be the best player on the court the other day.
He was not.
He was not
game.
even close. And I certainly didn't think the Bucks would be able to slow him down. Andre Jackson did a great job. But look, I've seen the Bucks a bunch this past couple months, and Giannis, I've said it a ton of times, he deserves an immense amount of credit for putting this team on his back and dragging them along. Because you look at the box score every night, Giannis has an A+ game. Dame has like a B+ game. There's a bunch of guys at 10 or under points every game.
Well, sometimes Portis
they'll
every now and
occasionally
then.
put up numbers, but the point is, Giannis has just
Once
been
again,
a sledgehammer
AJ Green
every.
erasure.
Yeah, awesome jumper.
Yeah, AJ Green has been great.
If you want to knock Giannis, you could say, hey, he's not the defensive havoc.
Having said that, he makes defensive plays.
During this streak.
In Vegas, I mean, he was unbelievable. And just when he makes some defensive plays, like, holy moly.
What if I told you he's averaging the most blocks he has in 7 years?
Listen, the beginning of the season, when they were 2-8, he was not at the same level on defense. But as they've turned things around, he's amped it up on both ends, and he's been really good.
Let me point something out. You mentioned about not shooting threes.
Yes.
There was a season, the pandemic season, 1920, where he actually averaged 5 3-point attempts a game.
Yes.
Okay. Last year he averaged just under 2. He basically went through 4 years where he averaged 4.
He's never averaged less than 1. This year he's averaging 0.7.
That's right. So he's gone from averaging 5 a game to less than 1. I mean, that's been 5 years, but even last year he was shooting 2. He was hoisting 2 a game.
And he's been attacking relentlessly inside. Like that Celtics game I was at a couple weeks ago when they lost the narrow game at the Garden. He was just going downhill every single play. And people freaked out because he got tired and took the 1-3 at the end of the game. I was like, this guy has been a sledgehammer and a battering ram at the rim all game. Like, what are we talking about?
There is nothing more spectacular to behold in basketball than when Giannis has it in transition.
He's the greatest transition force in the history of the league. It's
6'11",
unbelievable.
245, chiseled, is faster than everybody else on the floor, and just it's
a sight to behold.
Yeah, just a
current
rocket battering ram.
ESPN bet odds: Giannis plus 475 for in third. I had Giannis third in my ballot.
I think he's the most,
which I voted before the game, and I didn't change.
I think he's when he's playing at this level, like, I think he just does stuff you don't see anybody else do. Like, it's truly unbelievable. Like we talked about the other night, that block he had on that Capella alley-oop the other day. Like, he just does stuff you go, holy crap, how did he do that? And
we've seen that before. That was the block against DeAndre Ayton. That was one of the biggest blocks in NBA history in the finals.
And this goes, like, you just read off that stat line. Like, this is where I think Luka, there's no commentary on how good of a player Luka is.
Yeah.
From where he's starting, it's going to require these other guys to take a step back, and Luka's going to have to go up to here.
I mean, the one thing I would say about Luka is he is fully capable of averaging a 30-something point triple-double for the rest of the season.
Well, yeah, except that one of the guys ahead of him on the list is already averaging a 30-point triple-double, and he's a better player than him. So, like, that's
on a team that I think will finish below the Mavericks.
I know, but that's my point, though. Like, I don't think he's going to win either of those arguments for putting up the numbers or record. So now I think we can move on to second.
Second place,
24 first place votes, 36 second place votes, 35 third place votes, 3 fourth place votes, 2 fifth place votes, one of 2 players to be on every ballot. Who is it?
Joker.
What's your answer?
I think that it could have been Shai, but I think because you told us so many people changed, I have the information. I suspect that Shai dropped from 1 to 2 after that game.
He dropped, but he didn't drop from 1 to 2. He is 2, and he was 2 by a healthy amount. 678 total points.
Okay.
So in first place, just to finish it, because we're here, 57 first place votes, 23 second place votes, 18 third place votes, 2 fourth place votes, 100 ballots. Nikola Jokic, 827 points. He has been in first place in the straw poll in 3 consecutive ballots going back to last year, and he's been in the top 2 in the last 7.
Listen, I'm not going to sit here and make a case for why Joker shouldn't be MVP.
Who did you vote for?
I voted Giannis, and I was a flipper.
Well, just to read off their numbers, because I do think it matters here. So Shai, 30.3 points per game, third in the league, 5.5 rebounds, 6.3 assists, 1.9 steals, 1 block. He's one of 4 players ever at this point to average at least 1 steal, 1 block, and those other numbers. The other guys are Giannis, Dwayne Wade, and LeBron. Pretty good category. While shooting 51% from the field.
Efficiently filling it up across the box score, and he's not the reason they're the number 1 defense, but he is a key part of
the fact he's a good defensive player is a massive bonus as a ball dominant guard. And let's just remind everybody the numbers that Nikola Jokic is putting up as the number 1 guy on this list. 30.9 points, second in the league. 13.3 rebounds. I believe that's first in the league. Actually, it might be second.
Cat's first.
Yeah, second to Cat, right. 9.9 assists, second in the league. Second in all 3 categories. While shooting 55.8% from the field on 21 shots a game and shooting 48.9% on threes.
His most shots per game by 3 in his career, obviously just because they need it. So he's shooting more than ever. And
by the way, he's averaging 1.8 steals a game.
And more efficient than ever. Typically, the higher you shoot, the less efficient you are.
Yeah,
so now he's just doing unprecedented offensive things.
And it's added up to a 14-10 record, which is a half game better than the Bucks, since the Bucks didn't get credit for their NBA Cup Finals win. They are 5th in the West right now, but there's 3 14-11 teams right behind them. What's the minimum finish in the standings that an MVP must have?
What year when Russ won it? What year were they?
I believe they were 6th. To me, like, you can't be a play-in team and the MVP,
especially when you've already won it 3 times.
Right? Yes, and
I don't know. His stats are so bonkers.
They are.
Their team is so bad compared to where it's been that he is dragging it, like Giannis has been dragging it along and doing all of this unprecedented stuff to just get them wins on a nightly basis, which means it's probably not going to stop.
Right. And like the on-off numbers, again, it's not an end-all be-all, but they are interesting. I'll pull up Jokic's because you're pulling up Shai's.
Yes, because I looked this up yesterday in preparation for this.
Right. And so and then I'll look up Giannis. Shai, the Thunder have a net rating of plus 16.4 with him.
Very good.
Yeah, outstanding. And plus 1 without him. So we're talking about a 15-point and change difference.
That's a pretty good difference. So I've got Giannis here too. So Giannis Antetokounmpo, when he's on the court, the Bucks are only 2 points per 100 possessions better. And
that's because that first 10 games was so bad.
And they're also they're actually plus 1 overall, but about 1.5 points worse when he's off the court, which is interesting. Small gap. I don't think it tells the whole story. Now, Nikola Jokic, just so people know. In 782 minutes, the Nuggets have a 123.1 offensive rating, a 112.7 defensive rating. That's a positive net rating of 10.4. When Nikola Jokic is on the bench in 380 minutes, the Denver Nuggets have a 96.3 offensive rating. They have a 111.4 defensive rating. That is a negative 15.1 rating. That is a flop of 25.5 points. Or, yes.
Well,
25 points.
I don't know if Calvin Booth's going to win Executive of the Year.
Maybe not. Well, but that just shows you what we're talking about here from that number.
Okay, so if you're trying to win the MVP and you're not from one of the top 3 or 4 teams, you have to have a compelling set of circumstances. In other words, a very high bar, especially if your narrative is a little bit messy because he's 1-3 and their team appears to be on the decline.
We say this, but here he is number 1
Well, that's what I'm saying. So I'm saying the bar, based on historically and the competition, the bar for Jokic is outrageously high. And I would and I said before the season, I think the bar is going to be so high that he can't clear it.
Right.
I think that he's being this impressive.
Look, there's one guy ever that's won 4 out of 5. It's LeBron James.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, listen, Jokic is absolutely an all-time great. That has been established.
And he won 1 title in there, by the way. When he won his 4th MVP.
Actually, I take that back. There's 2. It's LeBron and Bill Russell. I forgot about Bill
Pretty
Russell.
Good company.
Bill Russell did it back in the 60s.
And the thing to me is, if we're talking about who is the best player in the NBA, that's Joker. Like, we know that. But it's a different conversation of who is the most valuable player of the 24-25 season. And again, certainly he has a case. But the Nuggets, if they're a 5th seed, 6th seed, certainly a play-in team, I think it's a tougher case to make. Now, part of the assumption is also, I think, that the Bucks are going to continue rising.
Well, look, here's where I think this sits. So to go back to the Luka thing, right? I think we would agree as a group, right, that the Dallas Mavericks have a better supporting cast around Luka than the Bucks do around Giannis and the Nuggets do around Jokic, right? So he has a better team than those guys around him. And he's going to have worse stats than they do, probably, or comparable stats.
I think the stats will end up being probably
This
comparable.
is not, again, to be clear, because I know everybody in Dallas is going to get angry at me for saying this. None of this is to say Luka's bad. He's not having a great year. He obviously is. But we're just talking about where these guys rank, right?
He's not, by his standards, he has not had a great year so
I understand
far.
that.
He has started to have
right,
a great
but I'm
season.
just saying, this isn't a bag on Luka session. It's just to lay out where I think the race sits. So it's hard for me to see, sitting here, what the argument's going to be to put Luka ahead of Giannis or Jokic between now and the end of the year, barring injury, which obviously we're going to set to the side because if injuries happen, whatever. Also, by the way, Jokic never gets hurt. So it's like Giannis plays a physical style. He could have something happen. I mean, okay, Jokic has been healthy his whole career. I feel pretty safe saying that.
So Jokic, by the way, at ESPN bet is plus 115. I'm not sure the odds can really, that's probably about as low as it's going to go.
I mean, the guy's averaging 33, 13, and 10, basically, on insane shooting.
Well, but what this voting is saying is, despite his team's performance, the voters, which I'm one of them, the voters are still very firmly on his side.
Well, and this is where I think we need to talk about what happened.
Well, yeah, we haven't even talked about Shai. By the way, Shai at ESPN bet right now, plus 275.
So let's talk about what happened. So before the game Tuesday night, when the 100 ballots were in, Giannis had 8 first-place votes. So we got 11 more after that
Including
game.
by you?
Yes.
Including by MacMahon.
I had Shai 1, Giannis 2. I thought it was
You
close.
guys should actually just rip through your ballots. Do you remember them?
You never reveal your ballot, but will you reveal whether, or did you not vote?
I didn't vote.
Oh, you didn't vote. Okay.
So I don't have a vote. He does, but I vote in this and he doesn't. Makes perfect sense.
I'm going to campaign for you to get a vote this year.
My ballot, I don't want one.
Oh, wow.
I don't want to deal with the drama.
I'm going to campaign for it. I'm going to make sure you get one.
People get mad enough at me for various things. Mine was Giannis Shai, which I did flip during the third quarter. And again, it was close going in. I couldn't sit there and watch that performance where Shai had a dud. Giannis was absolutely
That's fine, but you
dominant.
realize we're voting on the entire season.
Yes, but that's part of the
Okay,
season.
that's
And
fine.
it was
That's fine.
They were 1-2 going in.
There were some
it
people
was
who
very
moved
close.
Shai around multiple spots.
No, I mean, again,
I would
going
just-
into this, I thought there's 3 legit candidates to be the number 1 guy. So I flipped. I have Giannis
agree.
now, Shai. Joker was 3 for me. I had Tatum 4, Luka 5.
Okay.
What was yours?
I had Jokic first. I had Shai second. I had Giannis third. And that's it's close race. Jokic is my MVP by a fair amount.
Those 3 are the easy 3. Tatum is an easy 4, and then 5 you could pick from a handful of guys.
I am a believer in believer is a bit too strong. You guys know, dating back to the fall, I believe the Bucks are more potent than they've been given credit for, because I think they were unfairly viewed because Giannis got hurt in the last 2 rounds. Then they get off to a 2-8 start, and my position was rough, and I actually predicted.
Whoa. That's like a 4-letter word, but it's got a bunch more.
On NBA Countdown, where they browbeat me into doing it, the first day of the NBA Cup of the pool play, I predicted the Bucks would reach the final against the Rockets. I am a bigger believer in the Bucks than most, and have been for a while. I'm not saying they're upsetting the Celtics. Actually, they have a really interesting game tomorrow against the Cavs in Cleveland. They've lost to the Cavs by, I think, 1 and 2 points this year. Mm-hmm. That's a potential playoff series. So they did go home. They didn't stay in. I thought maybe they'd stay in Vegas for a few days, but they did go home. But so even though I've got Giannis third, I'm a believer in the Bucks.
Well, what they just did was made it very clear that this turnaround is legitimate. They just kicked the Thunder's butts up and down the floor, and the Thunder are obviously one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah, I obviously recognize that the Bucks are flawed, particularly with their perimeter defense. I think they got because of injuries, they were disregarded unfairly.
We ever going to get to 4?
Oh, I had
KD
at 4, and I had Tatum at 5.
Well, listen.
Luka hate be directed to him. Skip past me.
Well, listen. This is just so people get the whole picture of it. So, 11 of the 19 votes came after the game. 8 of those came from Shai, who would have had 32.
11 of the 19 people changed their ballots.
No, 29 of the 100. Let me back up. 29 of the 100 people changed their ballot in some form. Giannis gained 11 first-place votes, and overall he gained 78 points. Shai lost 8 and lost 57 points. Jokic lost 3 first-place votes and lost 14 total points. And there was some moving around farther down, but the main takeaway was Giannis gained a healthy amount and Shai lost a healthy amount. And so before the game, it was about a 100-point gap between Jokic and Shai, and another about 100-point gap, maybe a little bit more for each of those, from Shai to Giannis. And so after that game, it was Jokic, 150-point-ish gap to Shai, 30-point gap to Giannis, and then a cavernous gap to everybody else. So I think when you come back to where the standings sit, I would say as of today, despite the way the game went the other day, I think Shai is probably, if I'm guessing now to project out who's going to be at top at the end of the year, I think Shai's got a pretty good case to be at the top because their team is going to be awesome. Yeah. They're very likely to be the best team in the West. And if Denver and Milwaukee struggle at all, record-wise, there's going to be a very sizable gap there. And Shai is seen as a player in that category and is going to have really big numbers. Yeah. Now, I think the other thing I'll say, I do think people are going to remember this game. And when you look at the East, even though the East is a lot worse than the West, the Bucks are going this way. And I don't think the Bucks are going to be in the play-in.
No.
So if the Bucks wind up in the top 3 in the East and Giannis is doing this, so overall, for as great as Jokic has been, I think Denver is going to have to win pretty consistently for him to stay ahead of those guys.
Well, and again,
and I also think this is going for just one more thing. I think if you go back a couple of years ago, the 21-22 season and the 22-23 season, virtually those entire years were about 3 guys, Jokic, Giannis, and Embiid. And I think we're headed basically to the same thing again.
There was one point in an early poll where Steph was leading, wasn't he?
The first poll has always been a little wonky.
I have last year's first poll in front of me.
I have it in front of me. Okay. I could go through it. The last 4 years, the guy who finished first has not won.
Yeah.
Embiid fell off because of injuries. Tatum fell off. Steph fell off. LeBron fell off.
So historically, if you win the Bontemps poll 1.0, you don't win the MVP.
Right, because it's tended to be flukier because we've seen, Tatum won the one year when the Celtics are way out in front. We've seen some fluke years. The Warriors had the great start. Steph was a million miles out in front, and then they fell off. But I do think that if you go back to those years, we spent all year agonizing over Jokic, Embiid, LeBron, or Jokic, Embiid, and Giannis. I think we're headed for the same thing because you could pick any of these dudes, and it's beyond correct, and it's going to be very difficult to split them.
I would also say that last year in your first poll, which I'm just looking at, there were 6 guys who got first place votes. This year,
I believe this is the first. I had it in my story. I believe it's the first time. Since I started doing this at ESPN. It's the first time this poll is 6 years.
6 years.
It's the first time this poll's only had 3 players get a first place vote at the start. Usually the first one is a lot more all over the place, and there's a lot of people arguing for different candidates, and you can make different arguments. These guys have been so good and have set themselves apart so much. That's where I think Luka's in trouble.
And Luka has not earned his way into that at this point. The one thing I want to say real quick about this Shai dud on probably as bright as a December spotlight can be stage, I flipped. However, to act like this is some kind of a statement or to draw some kind of conclusion, Shai doesn't show up in big games is ridiculous. And one thing Shai is fighting against is the other candidates here. Joker has won a title. Giannis has won a title. Not only are these guys former MVPs, they're finals MVPs. Luka, if he can get into this race, is fresh off of a finals appearance.
He also was a Western Conference Finals MVP. I don't know if that counts for something.
These guys are obviously more accomplished players in terms of postseason success. Listen, Shai was unbelievable in that series against the Mavericks last year. The Mavericks won the series. They were the better team. They won it in 6 games. If you look at who had the best individual series, it was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The man efficiently averaged, rounding down, 32, 8, 7, a couple blocks and over a steal. So don't tell me the guy wilts under bright lights. He had a dud in the Cup final, but let's not draw some grand conclusion.
These guys are all unbelievable players, and it's going to end up being assuming they all stay healthy, which I certainly hope they do. It's going to end up being an agonizing vote at the end because it's going to. I was thinking about it last night. It's just going to be like those 2 years where you go literally down to the last day, and whatever argument you want to make to put them in any order, it's all going to be totally legitimate. There's really no separation between them. And that's when these end up getting fairly contentious because you're going to have 3 fan bases and 3 teams and 3 players and all thinking they deserve to win. And they're not wrong.
There will be 4.
Be hard.
The Mavericks will.
They will say that. I just think
they'll believe it.
But that's what I mean.
Whether he can make the case.
A lot of
legitimate remains to be seen.
A lot of people will believe it, but it's one thing to believe it. It's another thing to be in reality in the same grouping. And I think his start is just in most years, like last year, Embiid barely had any, or when he won, he was way behind at the start because he missed some time with injury at the beginning and then he came back. I think the way these guys have started, they've just already separated themselves to a point where I do think it's not a typical year, and it's going to be really difficult to come from behind and make this competitive. Because, like, look, I would have thought going into this, with the way the Cavs have started, Donovan Mitchell would have a lot more votes, just in general. I thought people were like, hey, they've been awesome. He's been great. We're going to reward them.
Yeah.
Or the Celtics coming off the title. Tatum's the best player on the team. We're going to reward them. And those guys have been really good. But these three have been at such another level that they've already separated themselves. Typically, I mean, this looks more like the second poll of the year in February, when it's like three guys have really separated themselves from the group. And I just think it's going to be hard for anybody else, even Luka, as great as he is, to overcome that, barring either injury or like them going 22-2 or like some other.
Yeah, I mean, if
otherworldly stretch.
if the Mavericks get to a point where they're on the heels of the Thunder for the number one seed,
yes,
it's like
that could happen.
It could. That's what I'm saying. I think it'll be a 4-horse race. It's 3 right now, and they're way ahead. Luka's got a lot of ground to make up.
Well, one thing I think that you could figure into this: the Thunder have not had their full team yet. I mean, the Bucks have their full team right now. I mean, Middleton's not playing great. The Bucks basically have their full team.
And Denver's had their whole team too.
Yeah, well, they've had Murray has been.
Well, and Gordon missed a stretch.
Yeah, Gordon had a shoulder.
I mean, they've had some injuries, but
right.
The Thunder have had their whole team 0 days.
In theory, you could see, because especially what a difference it would. I mean, you can just look at the way they were guarding Giannis the other night, and imagine if they had 2 bigs instead of just one. Basically.
Yeah, they've already got the best defense in the league without having the two of them together for a second.
The Thunder could turn into monsters if they get Chet.
I sort of just like to see Lou Dort on Giannis more in that game in general. That was odd to me.
Well, there was just
basically didn't see it till the fourth quarter.
There were these times where they had Caruso on him, and it was just like, why? What do you do?
Lou Dort's built like an absolute fire hydrant. Yeah. That just confused me. I'm not taking away from the way Giannis played.
There was just time after time where he had such a massive size advantage.
As awesome as Giannis was, OKC held him under 100 points. OKC lost that game because they stunk offensively.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't a bad performance. All right. Well, I love the Bontemps poll.
It's the one thing I like about him.
I love the reaction to the Bontemps poll as well. It's always
well, what I love about it is people get mad at him. What all he did was take a poll.
Right. He didn't even vote in this
He didn't even vote in it.
Right.
But people get mad at him.
People have lots
He's
of reasons
easy to get mad at.
I was going to say, people get mad at me all the time, and this is the one time when I'm just telling people where things are at.
I'm going to fuel the fire. Blame him.
You know, the crazy thing is,
the thing I do enjoy about it is we spend all year talking about this race, and this does actually say where it's at. Yeah. Instead of people just saying, well, this guy should be winning. It's like, well,
that's fine. People have their opinion.
I know, but it's like this is an actual indication of where it actually sits, not just like
he doesn't live in Boston anymore, but he still goes to a lot of games at TD Garden, and for some reason, people just think he works at TD Garden.
It also happens at the other Garden in New York all the time. Yeah,
he looks like.
If I'm on the phone in the hallway, people come up to me nonstop and say, "Where is this?" I don't work here.
And it's like he's wearing like a red jacket, or like a green jacket or whatever they wear. And like
at MSG, everybody has the same uniform on. They all wear the same exact outfit. And they come to me anyway. I don't understand it.
You have the uptight look of a security guy.
Clearly.
And they're always mad at him, like where's the bathroom?
Always.
Where can I smoke? All right. Well, thank you for doing the work on that.
Sure.
It was enjoyable getting together here in LA. Well, when will it be next? I don't know. All-Star? I don't think so.
No, not unless you guys are going to Grand Caymans.
Oh, look at you. Look at you. I wouldn't broadcast my travel plans.
I'll be in San Francisco.
They're not official yet.
Finalized. Finals, maybe.
All right. Well, thank you to our producers behind the scenes, Jackson, Josh, and Rafa. And thank you for watching, listening to the Hoop Collective podcast. And we're going to talk to you before the holiday, but in case you don't hear from us before the holiday, hope you have safe travels and enjoy it. And we'll talk to you soon.
Adios, amigos.